Florida. Hang up the phone, they're talking to somebody in Portland, Maine, and so on. So they're really never talking, always talking virtually with a lead. They're not meeting face to face, and that can be a handicap, I think, ultimately to sizing them up appropriately and slotting them to the right franchisors. So if you're looking to surgically go into a particular market, a franchise broker system may or may not be able to absolutely target that locale. Typically, some broker leads are going to be internet sourced, or the majority of their leads are going to be from the internet. So it's this kind of tug-of-rope war of sorts, which again, you're paying a lot of money for these brokers. The average placement's going to be $10,000 to $20,000. Some brokers will charge you a front-end fee to get listed in their group. And to me, if you're just paying for internet leads that are fairly qualified, that's an expensive lead generation channel. You want to really look at the operative word being incremental. You want incremental leads. Leads that would not have found you otherwise. Leads that would never have clicked on your website or never thunk to call you because they didn't think they were a fit for your brand and your concept. Those that are just clicking on the internet, you probably could have found them anyway. And basically, you got to commit to ongoing communication and ongoing drips with the brokers. They have to keep hearing your success stories. You don't just sign up with them and hope that the leads just start flowing. You want to continue to give them the success stories. Treat them as you would a prospect, frankly. Always give them reason to keep you top of mind. So here's some questions I would ask a broker. Some questions, I have 10 here. There's probably 1,000 more. But number one, you want to make sure your compensation is pay for performance 100%. There's no retainers. There's no spiffs. There's no other upfront or ongoing fees that are hidden otherwise. Number two, often they will make you, or at least ostracize you if you don't attend their conventions annually. And that's good and bad, I guess, for a franchisor, because out of sight, out of mind. But at the same time, those broker conventions aren't cheap. Has anybody gone to any broker conventions ever? Exhibited or otherwise? I mean, they're every bit of $4,000 to $5,000 just to attend, and then travel costs on top of that. So it's even more expensive than the IFA conventions. But you get to press the flesh with all the brokers, and again, if you're looking at a long-term royalty stream and the ability to connect with more potential candidates, it may be worth and very justifiable. You are basically needing to ask them about their compliance training. How do they select and train their brokers? Could it be the case that some of their brokers yesterday were pharmaceutical sales reps and today they're franchise experts? Voila. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks out there that's the case, where they've taken some distance learning correspondence course, and now they know how to spell FDD, but that's about it. And so you got to be very careful and probe on how they're selected, how they're trained. Ask them if they have any brokers in the CFE program, and if so, what percentage of them are in the CFE program, either accredited or in the process of earning that accreditation. What percentage of the time do your brokers meet candidates in person? To me, again, it neuters your effectiveness if you're only talking to people on the phone. Brokers should have their own discovery day, so to speak, where they look the candidate in the eye and get personal dynamics understood and get to meet the spouse and all that well before the handoff to a franchisor. So if they're just working virtually, don't expect a great close rate. Can they target local markets? Like we said, if you're just looking at a geographical area only to target initially, that may not provide a good option for brokers. They want, or you would want to get testimonials. And not just testimonials from franchisors, but I would encourage you to get testimonials from the franchisees they've placed. Are the franchisees they've placed doing well? Or are they kind of crashing and burning? So clearly get testimonials. And finally, you ask the tough question, what's your historical placement to leads ratio? How much more efficient am I going to be because I'm paying you top dollar? I'm going to expect that I'm going to be able to close deals better, faster, cheaper as a result, and get that long-term annuity stream. So how do you integrate? What's the best practices to really maximize your broker dollar, so to speak? Meet as many affiliates in person. Get to know them. Host a broker discovery day. The really top decile performers that work with brokers, get brokers into their headquarters and give them the tour just as they would a candidate. Pay their freight, pay their way in for a day or two, and get to know them personally, and they can connect with the cause. That's a best practice. You want to have at least a single point of contact that's responsible for those broker networks. That's what they're dedicated to doing, is keep feeding them more information and never let the relationship atrophy or get stale. You want to develop a detailed blueprint. It's only as good, garbage in, garbage out. If you can't articulate to the broker what it is or who it is you're looking for, you're not going to necessarily get what you want. So you want to get a very tight correlation between who your top performers are and who you're asking the broker to go source. And make sure that if you say you have good validation, that you prove it, that you have demonstrable evidence that the validation is there. And it doesn't come from just your side of the story. It comes from a third-party independent research firm like a Fran survey or a franchise business review or Fran data, something where that somebody else has polled your franchisees and they're proselytizing of the merits of your system and they're hearing it from their mouths, not yours. I would say those are the top best practices, and that's how you're going to really maximize your effect with brokers.
Thank you, Dave. Believe it or not, it is 9:20. We are on time. I'm very surprised, which is fantastic. You've already heard from James about the inside being an internal VP of development. You've heard from Dave representing the broker, the third-party broker source that delivers to a franchisor a qualified candidate. Now we're going to have Mike Pollock, who is a VP with Franchise Dynamics. And this organization, very successful company, is an entirely outsourced franchise sales team for multiple different franchisors. So Mike, if you want to take over, please.
Sure. And let me start by saying what we do does not replace the marketing activities. What we really do is we replace your inside sales, in the entire team from start to finish. And there is cost to doing that, but there's also cost to hiring someone like James as well. So there's a balancing act. Typically what ends up happening is we end up being a little bit less money on the front end. We end up being a little bit more money on the back end. But those are things that will come in and help people evaluate as to whether or not your business makes sense to have outsourcing. And before I start with the slides, one of the challenges that a lot of young franchise companies have is really being able to put resources towards franchise development and franchise support. Often there is this struggle where they're either really good at bringing franchisees in the door, or they're really good at supporting the franchisees that they've got. Rarely are younger franchise systems good at that, both of those tasks at the same time. And that's really where we come in. We come in and allow the senior staff to be able to focus every day on franchise development. And that's typically the only days they get involved in franchise development is at Discovery Days. And we'll have interviews, and we've got several steps in the process. But every day the senior staff wakes up at the franchisor, they're focused on how am I going to help my franchisees make some more money. So as you're evaluating different franchise sales organizations, FSO is also franchise sales outsourcing, although outsourcing has the negative connotation, so I actually like organization a little better. But these are a couple of bullet points to you're going to want to. They really should be in the form of a question. These are things that you're going to want to ask companies that you're considering bringing on as your representation to potential franchise prospects. First is provides full service or full cycle services, and I'm going to talk a lot about that on the next slide. But we really take everything from cradle to grave, including helping them develop marketing plans on the front end to making sure that all the information is pulled in for the franchise agreements at the back end. The staff dedicated to your system all should have substantial franchise experience. And to give you a little bit how our structures work is we have a VP that will be kind of overseeing the project, but every project has a dedicated Director. Our director